What's up guys? Mike G here. In this video, I'll share with you exactly how I bought my second deal using creative financing and how you can too. I'll break down each creative financing strategy and how you can use it to acquire real estate today. And I'll reveal how you can use these strategies to structure your deals step by step. Lastly guys, if you stick around to the end of the video, I will reveal the 6 reasons why I think creative financing is far superior to traditional bank financing, and how you can use these strategies to acquire properties and build cash flow so you can retire early and do whatever it is you want. Maybe you want to play drums all day. Or maybe you want to play guitar all day. In my last video, I shared with you guys how I bought my first rental property using traditional bank financing, but that was so last week. So to invest like others won't or can't, you have to add some tools to your toolbox to be able to do what other investors will pass up and not take advantage of. So as I was hunting for my second rental property, I ran into a problem that most investors run into. I had reached my DTI limit and could not qualify for a loan. The debt I owed on the FHA loan that I had for my first rental property was too much when compared to my income at the time. So I had 2 choices: give up or find another way. So I started to do some research online, as well as ask other investors at a meetup group that I started to attend at the time. I was pleasantly surprised to find that the answer to my problem was simply learning a new skill and applying it. So I honed in on this one investor and I asked him to lunch to pick his brain and learn some things. Let's just say that was the best $30 lunch I ever paid for. This gentleman's name was Harold, and he became my first mentor. I didn't know it at the time, but Harold shared with me how he looked at real estate and how he approaches deals and talks to sellers. He shared several strategies with me. I took 10 pages of notes before our food even came out. At this point, guys, my hands were cramping. I could barely write. I had never taken so many notes so fast in my life. Not even in history class. With each sentence, Harold was dropping major nuggets of value on me, and I was soaking it up like a sponge. I knew I had found the right person to teach me about real estate. I just didn't know he was gonna eventually be my coach. But long story short, guys, he explained to me the first strategy that he liked to use the most, and that is called seller financing. Harold taught me how to pull lists, how to do marketing, and how to find distressed sellers. So I filtered my search results based on what he told me, and these are the things that I was looking for: non-owner occupied properties, high equity, and a neglected or run-down condition. I found several properties that fit this criteria, and following Harold's instruction, I wrote letters and mailed them out to these owners. I got a few replies back, but then I discovered I needed to learn how to talk to these people on the phone to take advantage of the leads that I got. I turned to Harold, he coached me on what to say, and a lot of the scripts that I use today came from those coaching sessions. I also improved my mail piece to get a better response. I put a lot of research into my direct mail to make it as effective as possible. This increased my opening rate. It took a lot of trial and error, guys, but Harold gave me some time-saving tips, and I used them, and I got much better results on my second direct mail campaign that I sent out. I had several calls from that mailer, of which I made 4 offers, and of one of those, we actually went under contract and I bought the property. Guys, I straight up asked for seller financing in my letter. So when I got these phone calls from these owners, I knew that they were open to it because they wouldn't have called me back otherwise. Kind of reminds me of one of those aha moments when you become one with earth and just meditate in silence. Just kidding. But seriously, guys, if you ask for something, the universe will typically give it to you. So we worked out the details, no agents involved, no commissions to pay, just buyer and seller. And Harold again stepped in and helped me with this deal to get it done. And I learned another valuable lesson, that when it comes to real estate, there's 2 ways to buy real estate. You can buy it on price or terms. So I gave the seller close to his asking price and still got a really great deal. He gave me the terms I was looking for, which was seller financing, no interest, and a balloon payment at year 5. This is just one of the methods that Harold taught me about creative finance, that every deal is structured differently, and depending on the deal, the more tools you have in your toolbox, the more creative you can get and the more flexible you can get to close deals that other investors can't close. So the better your ability to structure a win-win deal, means that you'll walk away with more doors at the end of the day and thus more cash flow as an investor without using a bank. I'm not saying bank financing is bad. There are times when it's appropriate. But when you can't qualify for bank financing and you still want to invest in rental properties, then you have to get creative and figure out other ways to get deals done. At the end of the day, I'm not going to let a bank's restrictions hold me back from investing in real estate. And you shouldn't either. And guys, just so you know, you can use these strategies for buying and selling rental properties. So the first method is seller carry. As I mentioned, this is my preferred method for acquiring real estate properties. If you're the seller, you become the bank for the buyer. You take a deposit, usually 10 to 20% of the purchase price down. Typically, this is non-refundable, and you carry the balance of the note for the buyer. You can also sell your note's interest to other people that are known as note investors. This typically works best on a property that is free and clear or close to being paid off in full. You can usually work your best price and terms on seller financing deals. Again, with no bank involved, it's really about the relationship you develop with that seller and what kind of deal you can get. Also, seller carry is really a great strategy for investors that have multiple properties that want to avoid capital gains tax but are tired landlords and tired of dealing with tenants and toilets. They want to sell off some of their properties, but they also don't want a taxable event. This is a way for them to sell off their properties, maintain an income stream, but pass ownership and responsibility on to the next investor who does want to take those things on. Method number 2 is lease options. There are variations of this strategy, but basically a lease option is you lease the property to a tenant while giving them the right to buy that home at a certain fixed price for a certain period of time. This allows the tenant to work on their loan qualifications such as income, credit, and down payment. Lease options are great options for sellers because you get top price for your home without having to deal with agents and commissions. You also get your property occupied with a tenant and you're collecting rent the entire time while that tenant is getting their qualifications in order. It's way better than just having a vacant home while you're paying property insurance, taxes, and interest with no income from a tenant. There is always the risk that the tenant will not qualify to buy the home at the time of the expiration of the lease option, but you can usually mitigate this through really solid credit and background checks and by making the deposit for the home very substantial. That will weed out a lot of people. Method number 3, seller carry second mortgage. This works just like a seller carry for the first mortgage, with the only difference being that the buyer gets a second mortgage for 70 to 80% of the purchase price of your home, and you as a seller carry back a second mortgage for the balance. This is usually done in commercial transactions, but can be done in residential transactions as well. The benefit here for the seller is that it opens you up to a larger pool of qualified buyers that have the credit, but they may not have the down payment. Method number 4, contract for deed. This is similar to seller financing, with the main difference being that the deed or title of the property is not transferred to the new buyer until that buyer has fulfilled their financial obligation and paid off that loan balance in full. The benefit here of preserving the title and deed in the seller's name is that if by chance the buyer defaults, you still have all that stuff in your name and you don't have to worry about going after that and trying to get your property back. Because the legal title is still in your name, you can then do a cash for keys type scenario where you can pay them to basically vacate your property since they violated the lease. And because no judgments or liens are tied to your property, only to them, your property will not have any issues or encumbrances on it. Typically, the buyer in this type of contract has no recourse if they default on that loan. Method 5, wraparound mortgages. Have you noticed that banks and insurance companies have the most expensive real estate on the most prime corners in every city and town across America? It's not by chance. They have been making huge profits for decades, and I'm gonna share with you their dirty little secret. See, banks, insurance companies, they leverage other people's money via checking accounts, CDs, and insurance premiums. They lock in a low cost interest rate to use your money. They turn around and take your money and invest it somewhere else at a much higher interest rate and way less cost than what they're paying you. For example, Warren Buffett's billions of dollars came in just the same way. And that's what a wraparound mortgage is. It uses the same model that banks and insurance companies use. You would borrow on a mortgage at a low interest rate and then you wrap that mortgage. Keep it in place while selling with carryback financing at a higher interest rate. So to explain that a little bit, I'll give you an example here up on the screen. I buy a house for $100K, put $10,000 down. and get seller carryback financing for $90,000 at 3% for 20 years at $500 a month. I then sell for $100,000, get $10,000 down, and provide seller carryback financing for $90,000 at 8% for 20 years at $753 a month. The 3% mortgage stays in control in first position. My 8% mortgage is in second position and wraps the first mortgage. A wrap mortgage is different from a normal second because my buyer only owes $90,000 and not $90,000 plus $90,000 to equal $180,000. The terms of the first mortgage are wrapped into the terms of the second. Myself or a servicing company collects $753 a month. I pay out $500 a month and I keep the profit of $253 a month rather. In this example, using a wrap, I have made $253 a month profit out of thin air by leveraging the financing of my original seller. This is comparable to the bank paying you 3% on a $90,000 CD and loaning somebody else that same $90,000 at 8%. We are both making money on margin. As always, guys, there are caveats to this strategy. This is not a beginner strategy. Good paperwork, education, and cash reserves are key to a successful wrap deal. And method 6 is subject to. A lot of mystery surrounds this type of creative financing, but in layman terms, a subject to is this. You get the deed, you pay property insurance, taxes, and interests, you give your word. The promise to pay is not a legally binding thing. It's a moral promise and an obligation that you take on. The loan can be called due if the mortgage company finds out that there's been a transfer of ownership or if a payment is missed. You own it, you can resell it for cash, you can rent it out, or you can lease to own. The one thing you do need is a great attorney to make sure that your paperwork is rock solid and you have all your bases covered. This is not a strategy for beginners at all. So guys, thanks for sticking around towards the end of the video. So now I'll go over the 6 reasons why I prefer creative financing over bank financing. When I started in real estate, I had a ton of time, but I didn't have a ton of money or experience. So to get rolling, I had to get smart and get creative with creative financing. The vast majority of my deals were put together using some form of non-traditional creative techniques like private loans, credit partners, seller carryback financing, loans from self-directed IRAs, lease options, contract for deeds, and equity partnerships. Little did I know at the time, but this challenging situation was a blessing in disguise. I developed my creative muscles early and I still use them to this day. Over time, I learned to prefer creative financing to bank financing for these reasons. Creative financing works in up or down markets. Did you stop and think about how hard it was to get money lent to you during 2008 to 2012 when the market crashed and it was the best opportunity to buy real estate in probably our lifetime? Creative financing still worked better than bank financing even in that market. Creative financing is flexible and fast. I recently closed a deal in 3 days. You'd be hard pressed to get an appraiser to come out from a bank finance deal and even get an appraisal done in 3 days. Creative financing has an unlimited supply. What's the institutional mortgage limit now? 10 loans, 5 loans? Whatever the bank decides it is, once you hit your max, you're done. Instead, I like to think about how many motivated property owners that are out there that will finance me for a deal if I bring them the right term. The numbers are virtually unlimited. Or how many retirement accounts are sitting out there with dismal interest rates that you could get them a higher return just by bringing them a good deal. If you show just a few of these people your deals that provide safety, reasonable returns, and good service, you'll be a financial hero for life, and you'll have all the private money you'll ever need. The amount of creative financing you can get is only limited by your knowledge, your ambition, and your trustworthiness. All terms of creating financing are negotiable. Banks give you a rate and term sheet, and you have to take it or leave it. Instead, with creative financing, I sit across from a table with you, we talk, we build rapport, we have a beer together, and we like each other, and we figure out what's a win-win for you and a win-win for me, and those are the terms that we go with. Personally, I like that a lot better. And if we're both happy, we do the deal. Here are just a few examples of creative terms using flexible terms with creative financing. The lowest interest rate I ever received came from a motivated seller, not a bank. Private lenders regularly let me accrue interest on fix and flips. I have negotiated no interest and no payments for months, even years, on some seller finance deals. I have done numerous no money down deals. Creative financing is less risky. Most of my creative financing deals have zero personal liability. The property itself is usually the collateral. On the other hand, most bank loans require personal guarantees of assets like your home, your cars, any valuable assets that you own. And all those things are at risk if the deal should go bad. And lastly, sources of creative financing become friends and partners for life. My first private lender became my mentor and continues to do deals with me still to this day. With other creative financing sources, we regularly exchange Christmas gifts, sending and receiving to each other still to this day. These relationships do not expire. They just go dormant, and you have to keep them engaged by staying in touch with them and mailing them things and being thoughtful, maintaining the relationship. Again, these relationships don't expire and they don't get transferred to another bank like a loan does. So these relationships can last a lifetime. Even better than that, referrals that I get from all these satisfied people I've worked with in the past keep coming to this day, which brings even more creative financing deals. And the cycle goes on and on. So for all these reasons, guys, creative financing is the way to go, if you ask me. It's proven to be more profitable, less risky, and much easier than a traditional bank. Don't get me wrong, I'll still use banks from time to time, but 90% of my deals are done through creative financing. So that will do it for this video, guys. If you got some value from this, please do me a favor and smash that like button, hit that subscribe button, and click that notification bell if you want to get more videos about how you can make money and retire early in real estate and other investments. Thanks so much. I'll see you in the next one.